The latest entry in the Assassin's Creed franchise, Shadows, is set to launch on November 12th of this year, and it's creating a storm of discussion across social media. This kind of buzz usually signifies excitement, right? After all, it's the first Assassin's Creed game set in feudal Japan, a setting fans have eagerly awaited. But while there is palpable excitement, it's being drowned out by a wave of controversy that's only growing more intense for Ubisoft. In today's video, we're diving deep into the true history of the game's protagonist Yasuke, often held as the legendary Black Samurai. We'll explore whether historical accuracy has been sacrificed at the altar of political correctness. Furthermore, we'll delve into the community's reactions, with a keen focus on the perspectives from Japan regarding their culture and history's portrayal. So buckle up, because this is one video you won't want to miss. So while researching for this video, I was stunned. I knew there was controversy surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows, but as I dug deeper, I discovered that the rabbit hole of misinformation runs far deeper than I initially anticipated. We'll dive into why in just a moment, but first, let's talk about the game itself. Assassin's Creed Shadows is an action-adventure stealth game, much like its predecessors, set in 16th century Japan towards the end of the Sengoku period. The game features a richly detailed world that players can explore. The game focuses on the experiences of two protagonists, Naoe, a female shinobi or ninja, and Yasuke, an African samurai inspired by the historical figure of the same name. These two characters offer distinct gameplay styles, allowing you to approach quests in multiple unique ways. And I've got nothing bad to say about the gameplay experience itself. It looks fun and engaging, visually it's stunning, and the open world atmosphere allows you to explore feudal Japan in a way that hasn't been done in a game before. And the Assassin's Creed fanbase has been begging for a game set in ancient Japan for years with the ability to explore a samurai storyline. To provide some context, the Sengoku period was a time of social upheaval, political intrigue, and nearly constant military conflict in Japan. This era saw the rise of powerful daimyos, the role of samurai as both warriors and social leaders, and significant foreign interactions, particularly with Europeans. This backdrop is rich and complex, making it a fascinating setting for the game. So why is it now that the game is finally here that there is such unprecedented backlash? Well, the majority of the controversy centers around the game's main protagonist, Yasuke. Ubisoft's claim is that the character Yasuke is based off a real historical figure of the same name, who, as the story goes, was an African man who first arrived in Japan in the service of Jesuit missionary Alessandro Vallegnano. Once Yasuke arrived in Japan, he was summoned by daimyo Oda Nobunaga, who was a powerful feudal lord. Nobunaga wanted to see a black man as he'd never seen one before, and it was quite the novelty. Nobunaga then supposedly took him into his service, made him a samurai, and gave him the name Yasuke. It's important to note there is no evidence that Yasuke was ever given a surname, which is vital as all samurai had surnames. But let's dive into the first major controversy surrounding the game. So as I've said, an Assassin's Creed game in this setting has been highly anticipated. The idea of playing as a legendary Japanese samurai was awesome, and I mean there are countless remarkable figures from history to choose from. One notable example is Miyamoto Musashi, a renowned ronin famous for wielding two swords and remaining undefeated in over 60 duels. He's often held as the greatest swordsman who ever lived. So when the game was finally announced, excitement soared. However, the decision to feature a black protagonist, whose historical documentation is minimal at best, amounting to only a few pages, has sparked considerable backlash. The choice has led many fans to question the historical authenticity and representation of Japanese culture in the game. It appears that the decision to feature a black protagonist in Assassin's Creed Shadows was intentional. Many critics argue that this choice was driven more by marketing motives and a push for diversity, equity, and inclusion than by commitment to historical accuracy. The general consensus among those who oppose this decision is that it serves as a marketing ploy to boost visibility and sales, sacrificing historical fidelity for political correctness and virtue signaling. You might argue that it's just a game and not intended to be a factual representation of history. However, the game's primary selling point is its basis in historical events and figures. The developers could have created a fictional character and set the game in a completely different time and place, but they chose not to. Many Japanese people view this as historical distortion and protest against what they see as a lack of respect for Asian representation. Furthermore, they claim that responses from Ubisoft and Western media have been arrogant and discriminatory, amounting to nothing less than gaslighting. This response has only fueled the concerns of Japanese protesters and heightened the controversy surrounding the game. In an article by Kotaku journalist Elisa Makante, she dismisses the concerns raised by fans and Japanese cultural advocates as nothing more than hate. Mercante's perspective reduces legitimate grievances about historical accuracy and cultural representation to mere bigotry. She further claims that it is predominantly wealthy white men and boys who drive this so-called bigotry in the gaming industry. This dismissive approach exacerbates feelings of gaslighting among critics. Instead of addressing the genuine issues people have with the game, such responses label critics as racists and attempt to silence them. Far from calming the situation, these reactions have only intensified the controversy and fueled further outrage. And this controversy highlights a broader issue in entertainment: the frequent race swapping of characters, often replacing them with black characters. This trend is by no means limited to gaming, it's prevalent in films too. Examples include The Little Mermaid, Snow White, Anne Boleyn, and more recently, Denzel Washington's portrayal of a Roman emperor in the upcoming Gladiator 2. These choices have sparked similar backlash. Critics are often dismissed as racists, but such labels can obscure valid concerns. Many see these decisions as attempts at virtue signaling that compromise historical and cultural authenticity. Additionally, there is a growing sentiment among black communities that these pandering attempts are patronizing, as if their support can be easily bought with token representation. But this is different, you may say. Yasuke was a real historical figure. He was really a black samurai. It's not like they made that up, right? Well, this is now where I show you just how deep this rabbit hole goes. So firstly, I think it's important to know that the totality of the documentary evidence that attests to the life of Yasuke culminates in only a couple of pages, no more than a few paragraphs. In these documents, there is no claim made whatsoever that Yasuke was made a samurai. This is all inference and speculation that is read into the text. So where does all this information about the life of Yasuke come from? Well, first, we need to go to the most reliable and widely used educational resource amongst scholars and academics: Wikipedia. As we all know, Wikipedia allows users to edit posts, which can sometimes lead to significant changes in the narrative. As a result, Wikipedia is often viewed as not being a legitimate source for information and has a reputation for at times being wildly inaccurate. The Wikipedia page for Yasuke, over time and multiple edits, eventually made a claim that Yasuke was selected to be a samurai by Oda Nobunaga, an assertion with no historical evidence. This misinformation remained on the page for years and inspired Thomas Lockley, an English professor at Nihon University in Tokyo, to write a book titled Yasuke, The True Story of the Legendary African Samurai. Lockley's 480-page novel details Yasuke's journey from Africa to Asia and his service to Oda Nobunaga. The problem is that there was only about 13 sentences of primary source material about Yasuke's life. So how did Lockley manage to write nearly 500 pages? Well, as he puts it himself, you make research-based assumptions, which is academic speak for you make it up. Lockley recognized that adding embellishments would greatly increase the marketability of his novel, a strategy that worked and continues to work today. This embellished story has been accepted as historical fact worldwide, leading to the creation of the Assassin's Creed game and a Netflix animated series called Yasuke. The story has been sold, repackaged, and sold again, based on exaggerations at best and outright fabrications at worst. The phenomenon I'm referencing here is known as circular reporting. It occurs when information appears to be validated by multiple independent sources, but in reality, it originates from the same initial, often inaccurate and false source. This creates an illusion of credibility and reliability. A prime example of this is the story about the invention of the toaster. As the story goes, a man edited the Wikipedia page for the toaster to falsely claim that a Scottish scientist named Alan McMasters invented it. He did this as a prank. It was completely made up.
This was such a small lie on the internet, and it blew up into such a big thing.
But the false information was picked up by several news outlets and websites, which then cited each other, creating an illusion of credibility. Eventually, the information was widely accepted as true, despite its completely fabricated origins. The prank was able to remain undetected for years, which begs the question, if a prank about the man who invented the toaster circulated around the world and was widely believed as fact for years, how much more could the story of Yasuke the samurai, which many people have a deeply vested interest in propagating, continue in circulation? My guess? Well, as long as it keeps making money. So as we've explored today, the story of Assassin's Creed Shadows and its portrayal of Yasuke has sparked significant controversy, highlighting divisions within the gaming community. Some are outraged by the historical inaccuracies, others are indifferent as long as the game is enjoyable, and some see it as a bold step forward for inclusivity. But where do you stand on this issue? Regardless of your perspective, I think it's important to respect differing opinions and avoid dismissing others with name-calling. anything, especially those whose culture and history are directly impacted. So share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis and discussions. And as always, thank you for watching. I'm Dan Squids, and I'll see you in the next video.